This video is meant for Mrs. Rose's AB Calculus class. And our topic today is chain rule. As a refresher from class, chain rule says that when we're taking the derivative of a composition of functions, we are taking the derivative of the outside function first, leaving the inside function alone, and then we're multiplying by the derivative of the inside function. So you should have gotten this worksheet from me in class. I believe we did the first problem together. So we did h of -2 is equal to -2, h of 1 equals 0, and h of 2 equals 5. For part B, we would need to figure out first what the derivative of h of x is. So I'm going to take the derivative using chain rule, and it's f prime of g of x times g prime of x. So at -1, we're going to stick in a -1 everywhere that we have an x. So g of -1 is going to be 3.5, and g prime at -1 is going to be negative. We don't really need to know what the number is, since we're just trying to figure out if it's positive, negative, or equal to 0. The slope at f at 3.5, positive 3.5, 1, 2, 3.5, that's definitely a decreasing function, so the slope is negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So h prime of -1 is positive. So for justifying your answer, we got a conclusion sentence. Because the tangent line at f of x is 3.5 is decreasing, and the tangent line at g of x equals -1 is also decreasing, their product is positive. Okay, we're going to do h prime of -2 and h prime of 1 the same way. If you want to go ahead and pause the video at this point and try to figure out in yourself, I encourage you to do so. Otherwise, just keep watching and I'll do it for you. So for h prime of -2, we're using the same derivative, and we're plugging in a -2 anywhere that there's an x. G of -2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just kidding, 4. And g of -2 looks like we have a horizontal tangent line, so that slope is going to be 0. So then we look at f prime of 4, and f prime of 4 is negative, but it really doesn't matter because, of course, a negative times 0 is going to be 0. Now let's look at h prime of 1. We're plugging in 1 everywhere that there's an x, and g of 1 is going to be 0, and g prime of 1 is negative. Then we look at g prime of f prime of 0, and that's going to be 0 because we have a horizontal tangent line, and so we have 0 times a negative again, which is 0. For h prime of 2, we're going to plug in 2 everywhere that there's an x, and look at g of 2, which is -2, and the slope is definitely negative, so we've got f of -2 times a negative, and then we look at f prime of -2. That is definitely decreasing. So negative times a negative is a positive slope. For part D, we're going to need the derivative of k of x. So if k of x is 4 of f of x, k prime is going to equal the derivative of f of x to the 4th times 4x cubed. So now we're going to plug in -1 for all of our x's, and -1 to the 4th is obviously just 1, and 4 times -1 cubed is -4. So now we're going to go look at the slope at x equals 1 on the f graph. This is a positive number, function is increasing, so we have a positive number times negative number, which is a negative. So k of x is decreasing at x equals -1 because k prime at -1 is less than 0. For the back, this is an example of product rule. So we're going to take the derivative of h of x, and that's going to be our product rule, and then plug in 1 for everything. F prime of 1 we're going to get by looking at when x is 1, f prime is 2/3. And then we're going to multiply by g of 1. G of 1 is 12. Then we're going to add f of 1, which is -2, and multiply that by g prime of 1, which is -4/3. So this is going to be 2 times 4 is going to be 8 plus 8/3. So if we make this a 24/3, this is going to be 32/3. For the second one, when we take the derivative of h of x, my first function is x cubed, so I'm going to have the derivative equal to 3x squared times h of x plus x cubed times g prime of x. And then we're going to plug in -2 everywhere that there's an x. So we have 3 times 4, which is 12, and then g of -2 is -1. Minus -2 cubed is -8, and then g prime of -2 is 4. Well, -12 minus 32 is going to be -44. And our last question is quotient rule. So g of x is the linear piecewise function that looks like this, and f of x is the linear piecewise function that looks like this. We first need to calculate the derivative of h of x using quotient rule. Quotient rule says we've got the derivative of f times g minus f times the derivative of g all over g squared. If we want to calculate the value at h prime of 3, we're going to plug in 3 everywhere that there's an x. And now here's where it gets tricky because you have to look at the graph to figure out your y value and your slope value. H prime of 3 equals f prime of 3. So at 3, we have a slope of +1. We have up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So we have a positive slope at 1, and then we look at g of 3. The y value of g at 3 is 1. Then we're subtracting. F of 3, we have 3, and that has a y value of 3. G prime of 3, we're looking at g, and the slope is down 1 over 3, so -1/3. Then g of 3 we already did, that's going to be 1, and we're squaring that. So our derivative is going to be 1 plus 1 over 1, which is 2. If you have any questions, please come see me during Cav morning or view my other video on chain rule examples that we did in class. Have a good day.